We have Ms. Cheryl from these with Ms. Ann Hayes, so I really appreciate their presence and their support here today. I also very appreciative of the help from high school administration, Ms. Del Rosa and her staff, and especially our librarian, Ms. Otsoroga. She's been fantastic. So if you didn't know who I was, my name is Andrew Budris. I'm the lead teacher for social studies, so I study history, and I'm especially excited about this. Our Black History Month recognitions this year, because Black history is American history. It should be important for everyone in the school. It's one of my favorite events, and I'm especially excited because I have one of my favorite former students here, Kalikala. So I'm going to read, so I don't forget some of the thoughts I have to share with them all. Kalikala has turned his, Kalikala is a 2004 graduate of Bellport High School. He's a perfect guest to close out our school's recognition of Black History Month. Our focus is on resisting old ways of thinking. And when Khalid was a student in my class, it was clear that he was already someone with a passion at looking at the world differently. Khalid has turned his passion into an internationally recognized career as a photographer and filmmaker. He has published books on his work, produced and directed films, shown his work in museums around the globe, and spoken at some of the world's most prestigious universities. As you'll hear, his art is always focused on people who live among us but are treated as invisible by society. He'll be interviewed by Mr. Rodney O'Neill, who's a dear friend of mine, a longtime faculty member, and another person who's dedicated his professional life to make sure that people in the school look at things in a different way. We'll hear their conversation, and then we'll have time for questions from the audience. It's going to be tight on time. So if you have a question that you don't get to ask because of time constraints, as you leave, you'll see two easels. Ms. Paladino by one, and Ms. Del Rosa by the other. So no matter how you leave the auditorium, you'll have access to it. You can take out your phone, scan the QR code, and you can put on Google Form any question that you might have that you didn't get a chance to ask, and I'll make sure that Khalid gets it. So we'll try and do our time constraints that way. So, without further delay, let me turn things over to Mr. O'Neill and our honored guest, Mr. Khalid Kalam.
Well, let me just say, this is a very, very important Black History Month event for me. I've been knowing Khalid since he was a student here, never had him in class. But he's one of those hallway students who, as Mr. Budris said, echoed his passion to the way he dressed, to the way he spoke, to the way he moved around Bellport High School. And he's one of those students who I didn't have in class, but I wanted to get to know who he was. And I'm happy I did.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be back here at Bellport High School. Thank you, Mr. Budris. Seen some of my former teachers, Mr. Nancy, thank you. What's up? It's a true honor to be back here. You know, my path, my life path has been unorthodox and totally unique. You know, I was supposed to graduate in 2003, but I actually graduated in 2004 because I repeated the 8th grade in Bellport Middle School. I was left back. And, you know, at that time, to get let back in school was definitely a big, you know, hit to my self-esteem, my self-concept, and the idea of having, you know, a great life, you know what I'm saying, or a productive future. You know, I thought that was like a defining moment for me. But in fact, it was a defining moment, but in a positive sense, because it helped me to just turn things around and really begin to appreciate and value education. You know, we could get into the whole story much deeper, but you know, I'm so happy to be back here at the high school I graduated from, and you know, had so many life experiences at, you know what I'm saying, and it's a true honor and a pleasure to see you again and be here. So thanks for having me, for sure.
So one thing I can say about Khalid, he's very, very passionate in his beliefs. He was passionate here at the high school on how he got himself involved with student activities, after-school activities. He's just as passionate now. And I'm happy to be able to see his acceleration. As a student, last time I saw Khalid, Mr. White, myself, Mr. Bedward, we went to Lincoln Center. He performed in front of thousands of people at Lincoln Center. The hallways were filled with people trying to get in, they couldn't get in. He had a film that he produced, and this is see his growth from a Bellport student now to a renowned photographer and a renowned film person in the industry. It's nice to see your growth. It's nice to see you as a student, nice to see you as a man.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's get into some questions. All right, so our assembly is called the Resisting Old Thinking. You seem to have made a career of using art to change people's thinking. Can you describe your art for the audience and how it seeks to change people's thinking? First of all, we know that perception, unfortunately, is something's reality. Based on the perception people have of you, how does that art have influenced people over time?
You know, I didn't come from a family of artists. You know, neither of my parents are artists. You know, they're both immigrant parents. My mother's from Jamaica and my father's from Iran. So I came up with both of those cultures and both of those heritages. And education was the main thing stressed to me. You know what I'm saying? My grandmother was a school teacher in Jamaica, and my grandfather was a deacon minister. So, you know, those things were the things that were stressed to me. But I was always inspired by art and influenced, especially by music, by hip hop. You know, being born in 1985, I really came up throughout the 90s with 90s hip hop. You know, groups like Wu-Tang Clan, who I ended up working with later on, and you know, rappers like Nas and you know Mobb Deep and different East Coast rappers from New York were a big inspiration to me. And I always wanted to be, you know, into hip hop in some form or fashion, but I wasn't skilled at rapping. I wasn't skilled at graffiti or DJing, you know. But when I was 14 years old, actually after getting let back in school, you know, I begged my mother for a camera. And the camera was the introduction to me expressing myself artistically. You know, on my 14th birthday, my mother bought me a Canon ES-190 high-end cassette tape camera. And it's a different time back then, you know, in 1998, 99, from now, where everybody has access to a camera on their cell phone. You know, back then, there was no social media, not everybody had a cell phone with a camera. So the only camera was a novel thing. And that camera, you know, became, you know, the device that I used and the instrument I used to create my early films, you know. And we used to break dance, we used to skateboard, do graffiti, and the camera itself, I just carried it everywhere and documented, you know, every aspect of our lives, you know. And later on, I realized how important that was because, you know, I said, wow, I can actually edit now. You know what I'm saying? Somebody showed me an editing program called Final Cut Pro, the early version, you know, and I said, whoa, there's a razor, I could actually cut video, and you know, that was like an epiphany to me, and I realized that I could actually take all of the footage I've been recording since 14, and there at the age of 19, begin to actually chop it up and edit it and make my own films. And I basically am self-taught. You know, I began to, you know, go to South Country Library and read about all different filmmakers and read about different techniques. I had a library card, so anything I seen that was put out by the Criterion Channel, you know, I would pick up and begin to study and absorb. And, you know, that interest was the main thing that led me to achieving any type of success with my career. You know, I had a genuine interest and desire to express myself cinematically. And then photography came later. You know, I became a photographer a couple years after I had achieved the degree of success with my filmmaking. You know, and I guess that's what I would like to express to the students here as well. You know, you have to be interested in what you want to learn in order to succeed. You know, some of you in this, you know, room now are probably getting straight Fs, but you could be some of the most intelligent children in this room at the same time. You know, so, you know, you should strive for greatness and strive to be at the top of your classes. But understand that even if you are temporarily failing, you know, that doesn't define who you are, what you will achieve when you put your mind to it. You know, you just gotta find the thing that you're passionate about. For me, it was filmmaking and photography, and as Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Budgets have said, I've been able to, you know, screen my films all around the world. You know, my films have taken me to far-flung places like Kosovo and, you know, Malta and the Mediterranean and little islands like Sardinia and Corsica, you know, and all around Paris and all around Europe in general. So, you know, when I was your age and I was, you know, sitting in those same chairs, I never believed that I would, you know, end up going to some of the places I've been to just to exhibit work. So yeah, it's definitely a journey. Life is a journey, and yeah, the people that are in my work, you know, in the early phases, were people that were on the fringes of society. You know, anytime you walk around New York City, you see people with cameras, DSLRs around their neck. But I found one corner that nobody was photographing. You know, the only other camera was the surveillance cameras. You know, and this is a corner in Harlem, 125th and East Harlem, 125th and Lexington Avenue. There were just a lot of, you know, people that were kind of castaways in a sense, you know, drug addicts and homeless people. And people with very rich life experiences and stories, but were kind of avoided by the average New Yorker. And, you know, as I began to develop my own voice and signature style in photography, these are the people who I attracted to, because I understood that they were outside of, you know, the world of social media and Twitter. Many of them don't even have cell phones. You know, many of them were just being dropped off from the methadone clinics. And, you know, I had an idea to, you know, peer a little deeper into their psychology and to depict some of their stories through my lens. And that was the basis of my work as a photographer. And I also made a couple of films on that same street corner at nighttime. So, you know, telling people stories that you don't usually hear from became like motivation for me, you know, to try to understand what brought this person to a street life, what brought this person to, you know, drug addiction and homelessness. You know what I mean?
So there's a lot of teachers in this room, educators, administrators, and we preach a lot of college, emulate what you see, maybe to be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, but you didn't take that conventional route. You went into something different. You can speak to the students about creating that creative spark, something off the grid of what you did. Where did that creativeness come from? And can you share that with us?
Well, although you're in school and, you know, there's a curriculum that you have to follow, which is extremely important, you also have to recognize the power of your own mind to learn and your own ability to learn in and out of school. And you have to kind of supplement your education with things that, you know, are your personal interests. You know, for me, when I got left back in 8th grade, that was a beautiful experience, honestly, because it led me to begin to read on my own. Not just what was prescribed to me in school, but because I felt as if I needed to catch up, I began to, you know, go to the library and find things that I was interested in on my own. And that is what opened my mind up in a way where I was able to come back into school and now take class very seriously. I remember Miss Walkman was my teacher, and my English teacher, and you know, I would take the vocabulary book extremely seriously. You know what I'm saying? Because now I had a desire to express myself and to learn, you know, how to use words in a way that I hadn't, you know, you know, all of that is coming from myself. You know, nobody could really, you know, force you to become educated. You know what I'm saying? You have to choose to do it and understand the importance of it, and understand that education is the key to having a successful future. You know, I like to say that, you know, a rich person and a poor person, they both work. You know, the person that's, you know, a Wall Street banker in Wall Street is working very hard, but the person outside begging for change is still working. You know what I'm saying? He's just begging. His work is much different in the sense that he's not applying something more from his mind. He's instead now, you know, just kind of scrounging around, but it's still a degree of work. So you choose the work that you do, you know, and you get a different result depending on what type of contribution you make, and, you know, the way that work manifests, and it's up to you, you know. You know, at your age, you don't have to have it all figured out, you know, take your time and, you know, but education is the main thing. The more you know, the better you can do. me, that was so important. You know, I was interested in things like metaphysics. You know, I was interested in things like, you know, science and psychology. You know, a lot of my work is predicated on understanding how other people think and knowing how to, you know, help them in a sense. You know what I mean? And just also like, you know, listening to the subjects that I photograph. Many of them have very profound stories. And it's not just that I come in and take a picture. You know, many of them live on the street. So, you know, to stop them and approach them and ask them, may I take a photograph? There could be an hour-long discussion before that photograph actually happens. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's about humanity ultimately. You know, I know we're not showing my work today, but if any of you want to see it, you can contact me or Mr. Budris, and you know, you can really look at my book and check out the work, and you'll understand that it deals with humanity and it deals with the lives of people that are usually overlooked. You know what I mean? So I forgot the question.
No, you're actually answering. Your family, pretty famous Bellport family. Their productivity and creativity are off the charts, as we all know. What makes your family so accomplished?
Well, you know, my family is deep because, like I said, man, we have both those heritages, you know, Jamaican and Iranian within us. And our mother was a very strong woman who instilled within us the importance of believing in ourselves. You know, and that's the same thing that I say to you all. You know, nobody will believe in you unless you believe in you. You know what I'm saying? And you know, there were times when I had struggles. You know what I'm saying? I used to, you know, have struggles when I was in high school, when I was your age. There were plenty of times I got suspended. You know, plenty of times that I was in, you know, lunch detention or after school suspension, after school detention, whatever, you know. And my mom would just say, listen, this is what you're going to do now, but understand that there's greatness, there's a spark of light within you, and you have to find that and develop that light. You know what I mean? And I always took my mom's word as gospel. You know, to me, that was like, I understood that she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And it wasn't just me, it was all my brothers. You know, I'm the middle child out of 5 boys. So when you're the middle child, you know, you kind of get lost in the mix. You know what I'm saying? And my older brother, there was a lot of attention placed on him, and my youngest brother, there was a lot of attention placed on him. But being in the middle, you know, I remember, you know, hanging out at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., breakdancing, you know what I'm saying, when I had school the next day. You know, so part of the reason why I got left back was not because I was some sort of, you know, dummy or, you know, it was just that I wasn't waking up in time to get to school. You know, I was kind of, like I said, I was kind of doing my own thing at a young age. And, you know, when I was in high school, when I was in 10th grade, one of my best friends died. You know, there was a friend named Johnny James, who I'm sure you remember. You know, I had lent him a bike. He didn't have a bike. And I lent him my bike, and he was riding the bike across Station Road. And somebody was trying to get through the yellow light quickly, and they hit him. And he ended up passing away, you know what I'm saying, because of that. And, you know, at that age, you know, I guess you're, 14, 15 years old in 10th grade. When that happened, I said, wow. You know, I remember getting off the school bus and just thinking, like, you know, a couple of days after it had happened and we spoke about it in school, I said, what am I going to do with my life? You know, this guy was my age, you know what I'm saying, and his life got cut short. So I felt indebted in a way to make something of myself because of that, you know. And, you know, subsequently other friends passed away as well who I went to high school with. Some of them got caught up in the wrong things, and, you know, Hassan Career, as you know, was murdered, actually. And one of my other dear friends, Mac Alonso, you know, got caught up on drugs and passed away. So, you know, these are the experiences that, you know, happen if you live long enough, you know, and, you know, it's very important to take care of yourself and understand the value that you have and try to make, you know, righteous decisions that will help you benefit your life and others, you know, and that starts now. That starts with just kind of like deciding for yourself that you're going to have a beautiful future.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yeah.
sorry, what we're gonna do now, because we have about 10 minutes left in the period, We're going to shift to take some questions from the students. If you have questions, you can raise your hand, we'll bring the mic to you. And then we're done, just hand the mic back. If you're on this side, Ms. Palladino is going to pass the mic to you. If you're on this side, I'll do that. And then if there's so many questions, we'll head right back to Mr. Leon. But Cleve, thank you for mentioning Johnny James. I remember when Johnny James, unfortunately, he died when he was a very young man. I remember you speaking that at his memorial service at the school. It must have been really difficult. And that was one of the things we knew. We knew that you had like greatness in it to be able to rise to that occasion. So, does anyone have questions for Khalid? Raise your hand. Okay.
Hey, I was wondering, what was the toughest moment in your life that you got through, but always wondered how you did it, if you had it?
Toughest moment in my life that I got through. There's been so many things, you know what I'm saying? I've had difficulties with different relationships, you know what I'm saying? I remember my girlfriend's mom passed away, and that kind of led to her and I breaking up, you know what I'm saying? Which was difficult. I was there, I was a pallbearer at my mom's funeral. You know, that's just one thing. That's the thing that comes to the forefront right now, but that's more recent. I mean, you know, there's so many things that have happened. Many people passed away that were close to me, but one of the most difficult things was just deciding that I was going to be a survivor, you know, after seeing so many people pass away next to me, you know. I've dealt with the same issues as everybody else. I've dealt with issues of rejection. I've dealt with, you know, having to prove people wrong. I've dealt with, you know, trying to, you know, apply myself for certain grants and certain awards and it not working out, you know. But on the flip side, I've also dealt with a lot of success. So, you know, difficulties come, but it's about how you handle them. You know, everything is an opportunity, you know, to prove who you are, you know, and to, you know, overcome an obstacle. You know, one of the hardest things is one of the things that I said that happened, you know, in my youth, you know, just getting left back, especially in 8th grade, because that's the grade where your friends, your classmates move on to the next school, you know what I'm saying, the high school, and there I was having to repeat that. So, you know, during that time, I was also, I think I've always been pretty mature, because even back in those days, I had what I call a by myself meeting, which is basically just sitting down by myself, having a meeting with myself, you know, and thinking, yo, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna, you know, get up out of this situation in a good way? And that's when the self-education started, you know what I'm saying? And the process of, I remember I had a math teacher, Mr. Shotman, I don't know if he's here still, but the first semester or the first quarter, I got an F in his class. And he was kind of like, you know, not making fun of me, but I guess he knew that I could do better. And I just was having one of those by myself meetings, and I went from an F to an A+ the next quarter. And then I maintained that A+ because I felt like I had something like a personal challenge to show him that, you know, I could do that, you know. And that was one of the moments for me where, you know, at your age, you're still building your own self-concept, right, and your own awareness of who you are as a person. And at that point, to go from an F to an A+ was an awakening for me because I said, oh, I actually can do this. I'm not just doing this to impress the teacher or something. I'm doing this for myself. I actually can do that. And Mr. White, you know, was somebody who was a mentor to me during my high school age as well. And he would, I was in all sorts of after-school activities, which like the Center of Excellence and things like that, and I began to understand the importance of taking on greater responsibility that outside of your grades, but just other things, like even like playing chess. I used to walk around with a chessboard all the time, you know, in high school. And these are the things that kind of fortified my education. And, you know, all of it was difficult. You know what I'm saying? Life on this planet, on this plane, can be extremely difficult. You know what I'm saying? You just had like 30-something thousand people die in Turkey, you know what I'm saying, by an earthquake. You know what I'm saying? They didn't really do nothing. It wasn't a war, but they just died like that. You know, you got war in Ukraine. You got all sorts of stuff going on politically around the globe. So this is a very difficult world to traverse. but we all come here for a purpose, and it's about realizing what that purpose is. And sometimes that in and of itself can be very difficult. So, you know, I have probably many specific things I can tell you, but life in general, you know, and just staying positive and remaining a positive person to inspire and help others has been a struggle, but I'm doing it. So, thanks for your question.
Other questions? Okay.
Sports?
Oh, yes. We have a question asking if you played sports.
Not really, man. I was never really, you know, that good. You know what I'm saying? I used to, you know, play soccer, you know, and a little bit of basketball, you know, during gym class. You know, I was alright, but you know, I was into skateboarding and breakdancing at a young age, but I was never really that much of an athlete, honestly.
Hey, good morning. Thank you again for being here. Quick question. So, I can visualize 125th in Lexington happening in my mind. I was just in the Boy side last night. What would you say people get most wrong about people? And I think when we run into people who look different from us or have different circumstances, we're so quick to judge. And sometimes kindness escapes our hearts. So what would you say people get most wrong about people? And what role does kindness play in kind of changing people's mindsets?
Great question. You know, one thing is it's so easy to look at another person and judge another person, and that's the biggest blunder that any of us can make. You can't judge somebody based off of how they look or how they dress or their age or their sex or their gender or anything on a physical level, because ultimately what you are is a mental being. You know what I'm saying? Some of you here in this room know that about yourself. You know that you have very profound thoughts. You know that you're a very deep person. You know that you got a spirit and a soul to you that you can't always articulate and express to your friends, to the people around you, maybe even to your family, but you know that about yourself. So, you know, you are a very deep, dynamic thing as a human being. So it's important to regard other people in the same way, and not just to judge them based off of topical things, you know. And this is actually what my work is based on, because many of the people that I photograph who are part of my book, you know, they look unapproachable, or they're dealing with a drug history, or they're dealing with poverty or homelessness. You know, there's plenty of people that I photograph who I've seen, you know, laying on the corner in a puddle of their own urine, you know what I'm saying? But I can't meet them there. I have to meet them as, you know, children of God. I have to meet them as beings, mental beings, you know, with a spark of light in them, and kind of regard them that way. And when you react to people and you see that within people, they kind of appreciate that and recognize, oh, this person sees me beyond maybe even how I see myself. You know what I mean? This person understands that I'm a deeper thing than just how I present myself right now. So, you know, judgment is illusion. It's almost like just looking at the top layer of something and imagining that you fully understand it. You know, one thing is, you know, on the level of the body, there's all sorts of differences that we, you know, could presume and judge. But on the level of the mind and the spirit, that's where you could identify the oneness and begin to see yourself in other people. And this is a better way of seeing, because now you don't have just your own personal interest. The interest of others around you is your interest as well, because you see yourself as connected to them. And that's actually how the healing will happen, that needs to happen in this world. There's too much separate interest in, you know, people competing as opposed to working together with each other. You know what I'm saying? So
I can't think of a better way to end our session today. I want to remind, just before the bell rings, first of all, I want to remind you that we have the QR codes on either side as you leave that you can scan if you want to ask a question of Kalik. We'll also have those out there in the hall, in the lobby tomorrow, if you think of something. Let's give a round of applause to Kalik.